Brad, time to sell some material here, I think.
All right. What should we sell?
I don't know, whatever you got. You got some good sponsors here tonight.
All right, here we go.
You're listening to the Rock and Roll Classifieds on KOWZ 100.9 KOWZ.
All right. Brad, ladies and gentlemen, and Tyler, please welcome the only other founding member of both the Underbeats and GYPSY, as we had from that previous trivia question, from the Brainerd Lakes area, Doni Larson. Donnie, welcome to the 14th Annual Minnesota Music Special on KOWZ 100.9.
Good evening. I'm up here in God's country.
You're sounding 5x5, Donnie. Thanks for joining us. Tell us about your beginning in the Underbeats. How did you get picked to play, and take us through all of that?
Well, I was hanging out with Russell Hagen's sister, Barb, and they were having troubles. I met Johnson through him. Finding a bass player, they asked me if I wanted to learn how to play bass. I said, yeah, and so they grabbed me. We went down to Torps.
But you didn't have any prior real experience, did you? But you had it in the family DNA, though, right?
Yeah, my father was a bluegrass player, and I used to mess around with his old guitars after he passed away, but really didn't know nothing, to tell you the truth.
So Jim was telling us that you guys trotted off after they twisted your arm and said you're playing bass, and you said, okay. And then you went off. What did you buy?
I bought the biggest bass guitar in the world. It was a Magnetone because Little Richard's bass player played one.
All right.
It was a 35-inch scale, big one.
Oh, my. And you guys, according to Jim, you rehearsed quite a bit. How do you feel about that?
Oh, it was part of our routine to do twice a week, regardless of how many jobs we work. And at night, we'd always rehearse twice a week, and it carried us through very well. Jim was a hard taskmaster with that. He insisted, regardless, got to rehearse.
And that's how you got to excellence, as he told us. But tell us about that first gig at Bill's Roller Rink. You had a special memory about that one, right?
Oh, yeah, it was our first big gig. We got there, was packed, and there was another band playing. I think it might have been the Jesters or something. And I forgot my bass.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
What happened?
So my kid brother and my good buddy that loved to drive fast anyway drove all the way from Anoka back to Brooklyn Center and back to Anoka in record time.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's probably before the days of having a lot of radar out there on the road, but that's probably for the best.
Yeah, well, it worked. It just happened to work out.
Excellent. Now, the Underbeats, of course, were known as the leading edge of cool, as I call it. Tell us about what your attire was like when you were on stage.
Well, we started out casual, but then we ended up going down to Kiefer's and getting custom-made suits that looked just like the first suits the Beatles came over here in, only it was like a couple of years before the Beatles. And then we had Beatle boots before they were called Beatle boots. That and Johnson insisted we wear French-style berets.
Oh, yeah, that's it kind of sets you apart from the also-rans, people that didn't have that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we went through some various stages of dress, everything from that to when Wally was in the group, we looked like businessmen from Mad Men or something.
Well, that's good. Again, it's all about dress right, to feel right, to play right.
Absolutely, professional.
Yes, sir. And the Underbeats being the hot top performers that they were, of course, Bill Deal was helpful to you guys. Talk to us a little bit about the business side and how often you played and what you did with the money.
Well, we were doing up to 9 gigs a week, twice on Saturday and Sunday. And Tom Nystrom's aunt was a tax lady. Yeah. She made us understand how important it was to be incorporated. So we incorporated so everything you wore on stage was tax deductible, and we all drew a weekly salary. We put all that we earned into the bank and drew a weekly salary. So I mean it was. And we bought suits, sport coats, Harley Davidsons, everything with that.
That is very organized. And, of course, there's a special story about that Harley Sportster, right?
Yeah. Jim bought himself a blue Sportster. He'd wanted one for a long time. He bought it. I think he had it 1 or 2 days at his dad's house, and it was stolen.
No.
So he went out and bought another one, a newer one.
Well, you guys are drawing some good coin then. So how often did you play?
Well, like I said, we could do up to 9 hours, 9 jobs a week.
Wow.
7 on every day of the week, and then twice on Saturday and Sunday.
And you guys were getting how much ahead for playing?
It started out like around $50 to $100 a guy, and then it kept moving up to, by the time we left for L.A., it was about $100, $150 per man.
And that's
per night.
For our listeners tonight, Donnie. That's $1966, $1969. That's some pretty big jingo, So
Yeah, it was. I think we got an award from the Ballroom Owners Association. We were the highest grossing band of our type in the state, and so they gave us an award for it of some kind. So,
I would call that pay for performance, and you guys are at the top of your game. So now let's talk about the special Underbeats memories, right? The favorite gigs that you and I had talked about, but let's share that with the listeners.
Well, mine was the biggest one was my wedding night. we played over at the auditorium.
St. Paul Auditorium,
St. Paul
I think
Auditorium,
it was. Right? Yeah.
with the Dave Clark Five.
Wow.
And we ended up at Froggy's house later playing poker with them and stuff. That's the same night the Avani's drummer, Froggy, fell off the back of the stage while he was drumming.
Did he get hurt?
No, he just come running around in front. I'm okay, just like the commercial. Well, he's a young guy. He was a young guy.
Hazardous duty. Now, I think that was the same gig that Clyde McFadder and Linda Scott was at that Jim talked about, January 31st, 64.
Yeah, that was a big one. It was a big one.
Wow. And then, like you said, now you got married that day, so you had to go take care of business there, right? Pictures and what have you?
Well, everything got put on the back seat when we were performing. That's just the way it was.
Wow.
The performance came first because there was other people in the band that relied on doing the gig, let alone the fans that were paying our salary. So my ex-wife, she understood, or so she said, but they carried on the party without me.
All right. Cool. Now let's go on to GYPSY. Tell us about how the name GYPSY came about and what your role was in that. We
were just sitting around the GYPSY house one day after we had the new drummer come in, Jay Epstein. They all lived in a house up in the Silver Lake area in L.A., and we were just throwing out names, and I just said GYPSY, and everybody said that's it, and a conversation over. Cool. And when did you guys use that then? What was the first gig? I think it was when we left Gazzari's. That's right, yes. Back then we were the Underbeats. And I think there was another aspect I think that you had talked to me about. Describe pay to play. Help us understand that. In Los Angeles, and they've had it for quite a while, that if you played any original music on the gigs that you played there, for each song that you did that was original, you had to pay the owner. In other words, you got to deduct it from your salary. Oh, thanks. Yeah, because they said that you were promoting yourself. Oh, my. Cool. So that was kind of a crummy deal. But then it came here. It's kind of like that here now. Wow. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the humorous situations. Let's start out with that school bus in Flagstaff, Arizona. Tell us about that. Oh, yeah. That was quite the deal. We had bought a Ford school bus, 42-passenger, that was school bus orange. Well, we got as far as Colorado, Flagstaff, and the cops pulled us over. And they were really, you guys can't drive this, because we were a bunch of hippies, driving a school bus. And we said, why not? Because that's illegal in this state for anything but a school bus. So what are you going to do? They made us drive up to the police station and said, you got any contraband in here? Uh-oh. Open up the glove box door and a 38 fell out. Oh! Oh, my goodness, Anyways, they made us, before we could leave town, that thing with the 38 was just smoothed over because it was legal. Sure. And so they took us to the hardware store in town, and we got paint, red, white, and blue, and they watched us paint the school bus with paintbrushes out in front of the police station. Complying with the law, officer. Yeah, and they got a kick out of it. They applauded us when we left. Now, what was on the back of that bus? There was a famous photo on the back, or a great picture of Mickey Mouse with superimposed on top of a American flag. Johnson painted it by freehand. Oh, he's a pretty good artist then. That looked pretty super. Yeah, he was an artistic guy doing a lot of that stuff, yeah. Okay, so now you're out on Sunset Strip. What's going on with all these hippie haters? And tell me what you saw. Well, it was good when we first got there, but when we got around to, after a certain time, to playing the whiskey, we'd sit upstairs and open up the big windows, and it was wall-to-wall people on Sunset Strip for as far as the eye could see. And the cops would, sidewalk to sidewalk, and the cops would come through with the vans and sweeping the streets, throwing all these dirty hippies in the back, and then that was it for another weekend. Next weekend, same thing.
Wow. Pretty tough stuff. Now, you had some interesting neighbors at the California location where you guys stayed. Why don't you share that with the group? This is pretty unusual.
Well, that was a gypsy house, okay? That's where they all lived besides me. I had my own apartment. And, one night didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary, but in the morning, the cops, the FBI, everybody were there. Manson family had to cut through their backyard to get to the La Bianca house one step up the side of the hill that the gypsy house was from, their neighbors. So the Manson family had to cut through their yard, the back of their house, to get up to the La Biancas and out.
Wow.
Pretty scary stuff.
And that was August of 1969 when the Tate LaBianca murders took place, those heinous crimes with that fine gentleman. Now, you guys had a visit then the next day by law enforcement, right?
Oh, yeah, they swarmed all over the place with it, and we were shocked. And after that, it definitely got to the point where people hated hippies once it got out that the people that got arrested for it. I mean, it was a slow burn down from the Stones at Altamont, and then this thing at the La Biancas. It soured everything on hippies, long hairs after that.
Wow. Well, this is KOWZ FM 100.9. It's 9:03 in the Great Northland, and we're continuing our interview with Doni Larson. Before we get into your music, Doni, tell us what Gypsy was offered a famous song and why you guys passed on it.
Oh, yeah. At the time we were struggling to get the right name and stuff, and somebody offered us He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, and we said, nah, we don't think we could make that into what would be something that Gypsy would be known for. So we passed on it, and the Hollies had it and had a huge hit with it.
Missed it by that much, but, it's got to be right for it,
Yeah, we didn't think we could do a good job with it.
Well, Doni, in tribute to you and an appreciation for this interview tonight and for your contributions to Minnesota and Upper Midwest music, we've got a twin spin of your favorite songs. We're going to start out with I Can't Stand It by the Underbeats. And after that, we're going to hear Dead and Gone, which has opening licks that you wrote and the band put into play. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Doni.
Oh, you're welcome. Have a good night.
We got a great show thanks to the Underbeats and Gypsy. Good night, Doni.
Good night.
Stand
You're listening to the Rock and Roll Classifieds on KOWZ 100.9 KOWZ.
Six days of running, I've been trying to make it home. And they'll pursue me till they get back what I stole. Mistakes I made will follow me home. They won't be paid till I'm dead and gone. I know they're closing in, I feel them close behind. I just can't shake them, it's as if they knew my mind. Mistakes I made will follow me home. They won't be paid till I'm dead and gone. I won't make it home, I've already been shown. I won't see another day, or it's closed. I'm pushing hard 'cause I'm so afraid of dying. I've got to make it home to see her one more time. Mistakes I made will follow me home. They won't be paid till I'm dead and gone. Till I'm dead and gone. Till I'm dead and gone.
Dead and Gone, Gypsy with Doni Larson's opening licks on that tune. 1970, Minneapolis.